Hello, friends. Hope you're doing well today. The topic today is why you keep attracting the same kind of person. Sometimes the problem is not only that you keep meeting the wrong people. Sometimes the deeper issue is that something inside you keeps responding to the same pattern, the same personality, the same energy, the same emotional inconsistency, the same kind of attention, the same kind of confusion, the same kind of person who knows how to get close to you, but not how to love you with maturity. And if you do not pause to examine the partner, you may keep calling it coincidence when it is actually something deeper. You may say, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I keep meeting the same type of person? Why do I keep attracting emotionally unavailable people? Why do I keep ignoring red flags? Why do I keep giving my heart to people who are not prepared to protect it? These are not small questions. They are questions that require honesty, because sometimes the pattern is not only in who comes toward you. Sometimes the pattern is also in who you keep giving access to. And that is why this conversation matters. Because before you give your heart, you must understand what your heart has been trained to accept. You must understand what your heart keeps responding to. You must understand what your loneliness keeps excusing. You must understand what your wounds keep recognizing as familiar. You must understand what your hope keeps calling potential. You must understand why something unearthly can still feel so powerful. This is not to condemn anyone. This is not to blame anyone for being hurt. This is not to shame anyone for loving deeply. Sometimes people love sincerely and still end up wounded. Sometimes people trust someone who does not deserve that trust. Sometimes people give their best to someone who mishandles it. But healing requires more than saying they hurt me. Healing also asks, what did I ignore? What did I tolerate? What did I excuse? What did I call love when it was really instability? What did I keep choosing because it felt familiar? What part of me needs healing so I do not keep repeating this pattern? Those questions are not easy, but they are necessary, because a pattern cannot break if it is never examined. And many people do not repeat relationship cycles because they are foolish. No, they repeat them because they are wounded, lonely, hopeful, attached, afraid, or unhealed. So in this video, I want to talk about why you may keep attracting the same kind of person and how wisdom, healing, and discernment can help you break the cycle. So number one point is you may be drawn to what feels familiar, not what is earthy. One reason people keep attracting the same kind of person is because the heart can become drawn to what feels familiar even when familiar is not earthy. This is important. Familiar does not always mean safe. Familiar does not always mean right. Familiar does not always mean God sent. Sometimes familiar simply means your heart recognizes a pattern it has experienced before. If you grew used to inconsistency, consistency may feel strange. If you grew used to emotional distance, early communication may feel unfamiliar. If you grew used to chasing affection, being loved peacefully may feel almost uncomfortable. If you grew used to chaos, peace may feel boring. If you grew used to providing your worth, someone who values you without making you perform may feel confusing. That is why healing is so important, because an unhealed heart can mistake familiarity for connection. It can see emotional unavailability and call it mystery. It can see inconsistency and call it challenge. It can see intensity and call it chemistry. It can see chaos and call it passion. You can see someone who withholds love and feel drawn to the chase, not because the person is right, but because the pattern feels known. And what is known can sometimes feel safer than what is healthy. That is one of the ways people repeat cycles. They are not always choosing with wisdom. They are choosing from familiarity. And until the heart is healed, it may keep returning to what wounded it because that is what it knows how to recognize. This is why you must ask yourself, am I drawn to this person because they are healthy for me? Or am I drawn to them because something about them feels familiar to my wounds? That question can change your life, because not every connection that feels powerful is aligned. Not every attraction is wisdom. Not every emotional pull is confirmation. Sometimes what feels like connection is actually recognition. Your wound recognizes their pattern. Your fear recognizes their distance. Your insecurity recognizes their inconsistency. Your loneliness recognizes their attention. And if wisdom does not interrupt that pattern, your heart may follow what feels familiar into another painful experience. This is why before you give your heart, you must slow down. You must observe. You must ask, what is this producing in me? Is this bringing peace or anxiety? Is this helping me grow or making me shrink? Is this alignment or attachment? Is this healthy or is it simply familiar? Because familiar pain is still pain, and your heart was not created to keep returning to what hurts it simply because it knows the route. Number 2, unhealed wounds can mistake attention for love. Yes, another reason people keep attracting the same kind of person is because unhealed wounds can mistake attention for love. This happens more often than people realize. When someone is emotionally tired, lonely, rejected, overlooked, or hungry to feel chosen, attention can feel powerful. A message can feel like hope. A compliment can feel like safety. A little consistency can feel like commitment. A small amount of affection can feel like love. But attention is not always love. Someone can give you attention and still not value you. Someone can desire your presence and still not respect your heart. Someone can enjoy your energy and still not have the maturity to protect your peace. Someone can make you feel wanted and still not be ready to love you correctly. That is why attention must be tested by character. Attention is easy. Character is deeper. Attention can be emotional. Character is responsible. Attention can start quickly. Character is proven over time. And if a person is wounded, they may attach to attention before they have evaluated character. They may begin giving emotional access simply because someone made them feel noticed. They may open their heart because someone said the right words at the right time. They may start imagining a future because someone gave them the kind of attention they had been looking for. But longing can be dangerous when it is not guided by wisdom. Because what you are desperate to receive, you may fail to examine properly. If you are desperate to be chosen, you may ignore whether the person choosing you is healthy. If you are desperate for affection, you may overlook whether the affection is consistent. If you are desperate for love, you may accept attention and call it enough. If you are desperate not to be alone, you may stay where your spirit already feels uneasy. This is why healing matters. Healing helps you receive attention without becoming controlled by it. Healing helps you enjoy affection without confusing it with commitment. Healing helps you hear compliments without handing over your heart too quickly. Healing helps you ask, is this person giving me attention or are they showing responsibility? Do they only want access or do they have character? Do they make me feel wanted or do they make me feel safe? Because being wanted and being safe are not always the same thing. Many people are wanted by people who are not safe for their heart. Many people are desired by people who are not prepared for responsibility. Many people are pursued by people who cannot sustain love with maturity. And if a wound is hungry enough, even unhealthy attention can feel like healing. But it is not healing, it is a temporary feeling. And temporary feelings cannot replace wisdom. So if you keep attracting the same kind of person, ask yourself, what part of me responds too quickly to attention? What part of me feels chosen just because someone shows interest? What part of me still needs healing so I do not confuse attention with love? Because your heart deserves more than attention. It deserves care. It deserves peace. It deserves consistency. It deserves honesty. It deserves maturity. It deserves love that is supported by character. Point number 3. Loneliness can lower your discernment. Another reason people repeat relationship patterns is loneliness. Loneliness can make people accept what wisdom would normally reject. Loneliness can make red flags look small. Loneliness can make inconsistencies seem manageable. Loneliness can make emotional crumbs feel like provision. Loneliness can make someone say, at least they text me. At least they call sometimes. At least they say they care. At least I have someone. At least I'm not alone. But at least it's not the same as love. At least is often the language of emotional survival. It is what people say when they are trying to make less look like enough. And when loveliness becomes the decision maker, discernment becomes weak. A lonely heart may tolerate confusion just to keep connection. A lonely heart may accept inconsistency just to avoid silence. A lonely heart may ignore warning signs because the thought of starting over feels too painful. A lonely heart may stay in a relationship that is draining it because living feels like emotional emptiness. This is why you cannot let loneliness lead your relationship decisions. Loneliness is real. Loneliness can be painful. Loneliness can make the heart ache. But loneliness is not qualified to choose who receives your heart. Loneliness thinks short term. Wisdom thinks future. Loneliness wants relief. Wisdom wants earth. Loneliness asks, who is available? Wisdom asks, who is aligned? Loneliness asks, who makes me feel less alone? Wisdom asks, who is safe for my heart? Loneliness asks, who wants me? Wisdom asks, who has the maturity to love me correctly? That difference matters. Because if you choose only from loneliness, you may keep attracting people who are valuable but not healthy. present but not mature, interested but not responsible, emotionally exciting but spiritually misaligned, close enough to comfort your loneliness but not wise enough to protect your future. This is why seasons of singleness should not be treated as punishment. Sometimes singleness is protection. Sometimes singleness is preparation. Sometimes singleness is healing space. Sometimes singleness is where God restores your clarity. Sometimes singleness is where you learn that being alone is not the same as being abandoned. And when you stop seeing singleness as failure, loneliness loses some of its power over your decisions. You begin to choose from value, not desperation. You begin to ask deeper questions. You begin to recognize that being alone with peace is better than being attached to confusion. You begin to understand that a relationship should add to your life, not rescue you from yourself. So, if you keep attracting the same kind of person, ask, am I choosing from wisdom or am I choosing from loneliness? Am I accepting this because it is healthy or because I'm afraid to be alone? Am I calling this love or am I using it to avoid silence? Because loneliness can invite the wrong person into places that wisdom was trying to protect. Point number 4. You may be choosing potential instead of character. Another reason people keep repeating relationship patterns is because they choose potential instead of character. Potential is powerful because it gives the heart something to hope for. You see what the person could become. You see what the relationship could become. You imagine growth. You imagine change. You imagine a better future. You imagine the version of the person that will finally love you the way you desire. And sometimes people do grow. Sometimes people change. Sometimes people mature. But potential is not the same as character. Potential is possibility. Character is evidence. Potential is what someone might become. Character is who they are consistently showing themselves to be. And many people keep suffering because they are in love with possibility while being hurt by reality. They are emotionally attached to who the person could become while repeatedly being wounded by who the person currently is. They keep saying they just need time. They have a good heart. They have been through a lot. They could change. They are not always like this. I know who they can become. But wisdom asks, who are they now? How do they treat you now? How do they communicate now? How do they handle correction now? How do they respond when they hurt you now? How do they respect your boundaries now? How do they act when they are angry now? How do they behave when they do not get their way now? Because love cannot be built only on imagination. A healthy relationship needs reality. It needs evidence. It needs consistency. It needs maturity. It needs a pattern that supports trust. If you keep choosing potential over character, you may keep attracting people who give you hope but not earth. They give you vision but not stability. They give you words but not change. They give you moments but not consistency. They give you possibility but not peace. And the heart can become exhausted from waiting for someone to become who they keep promising to be. This is why you must learn to separate compassion from commitment. You can have compassion for someone's struggles without giving them full access to your heart. You can pray for someone's growth without building your life around their potential. You can believe someone can change without pretending they have already changed. You can care about someone and still recognize that they are not ready to love responsibly. That is wisdom. Because your heart should not be placed on hold while someone decides whether they will mature. Your peace should not be suspended while someone keeps repeating the same pattern. Your future should not be built on a version of someone that only exists in your hope. So if you keep attracting the same kind of person, ask yourself, am I attracted to who they are or who I hope they become? Am I responding to character or am I attached to potential? Am I choosing reality or am I choosing imagination? Because potential can inspire hope, but character is what protects the heart. Point number 5. You may ignore peace because chaos feels normal. Another reason people keep attracting the same kind of person is because they ignore peace when chaos feels normal. This is a deep one. Some people have lived so long in emotional instability that peace feels unfamiliar. They are used to intensity. They are used to guessing. They are used to highs and lows. They are used to emotional distance followed by sudden affection. They are used to tension. They are used to proving themselves. They are used to chasing clarity. So when something peaceful comes, they may not recognize it as love. They may call it boring. They may call it too calm. They may feel suspicious of it. They may wonder why there is no emotional roller coaster. They may confuse stability with lack of chemistry. But peace is not boring. Peace is protection. Peace is not weakness. Peace is not the absence of love. Peace is often the environment where healthy love can grow. But if chaos has trained your heart, you may mistake anxiety for chemistry. You may think love is supposed to feel uncertain. You may think passion must come with pain. You may think connection must involve emotional highs and lows. You may think someone has to keep you guessing for the relationship to feel exciting. And that mindset can pull you toward the same kind of person again and again. The emotional unavailable person, the inconsistent person, the person who gives affection and then disappears, the person who makes you work for basic communication, the person who makes you feel like peace is too much to ask for. But love should not constantly activate your survival mode. Love should not keep your nervous system in fear. Love should not make you anxious every day. Love should not make confusion feel normal. Love should not require emotional chaos to feel real. A healthy relationship may still have difficult conversations. It may still require patience. It may still require growth. But it should not constantly destroy your peace. It should not constantly make you feel unsafe. It should not constantly leave you emotionally drained. So if you keep attracting the same kind of person, ask, do I know how to receive peace? Do I mistake calmness for boredom? Do I confuse emotional intensity with love? Do I feel more drawn to chaos because peace feels unfamiliar? Have I been trained to chase what hurts me? These questions really matter. Because until peace becomes valuable to you, chaos will continue to feel attractive. And when you learn to value peace, your choices begin to change. You stop being impressed by instability. You stop being entertained by mixed signals. You stop calling confusion passion. You stop mistaking anxiety for chemistry. You begin to understand that peace is not something to sacrifice for love. Peace is part of what healthy love should protect. Point number 6. You may be repeating what you have not healed from. Yes. Another reason people keep attracting the same kind of person is because they are repeating what they have not healed from. Unhealed pain does not always stay in the past. Sometimes it travels into the present and shapes how a person chooses. It affects what they tolerate. It affects what they fear. It affects what they chase. It affects what they avoid. It affects what feels familiar. It affects what they call love. If someone has not healed from rejection, they may keep chasing people who make them feel they must earn love. If someone has not healed from abandonment, they may hold on too tightly to anyone who shows interest. If someone has not healed from betrayal, they may struggle to trust healthy love. If someone has not healed from being overlooked, they may attach quickly to anyone who gives them attention. If someone has not healed from low self-worth, they may accept less than they deserve because deep down they do not believe more is possible. That is why healing is not optional. Healing is not just about feeling better. Healing changes what you choose. Healing changes what you tolerate. Healing changes what you respond to. Healing changes what you recognize as safe. Healing changes what you allow near your heart. Without healing, a person may keep giving new people access to old wounds. And those wounds may keep choosing familiar pain. They may keep choosing emotionally unavailable people. They may keep choosing people who validate the insecurity. They may keep choosing people who repeat the abandonment. They may keep choosing people who recreate the very pain they are trying to escape. This is why you must not only ask, why do they keep hurting me? You must also ask, what part of me keeps allowing this pattern near my heart? Again, this is not about blame. It is about awareness, because awareness gives you power to choose differently. You cannot heal what you refuse to face. You cannot change what you refuse to examine. You cannot break a pattern you keep explaining away. Healing requires honesty. It requires prayer. It requires reflection. It requires boundaries. It requires self-awareness. It requires learning to sit with truth without running back to what feels familiar. And sometimes healing means admitting, I was not just loving them, I was trying to be chosen. I was not just patient, I was afraid to let go. I was not just hopeful, I was attached to potential. I was not just forgiving, I was ignoring patterns. I was not just giving grace, I was abandoning myself. That kind of honesty can be painful, but it can also be freeing. Because when you see the pattern clearly, you can begin to break it. You can choose differently. You can slow down. You can stop giving access too quickly. You can stop confusing attention with love. You can stop accepting emotional crumbs. You can stop calling chaos connection. You can stop treating inconsistency like something you must earn your way out of. And you can begin to protect your heart with wisdom. Part number 7. The pattern breaks when wisdom becomes louder than attachment. So the final reason I want to talk about is this. The pattern breaks down when wisdom becomes louder than attachment. Attachment can be loud. Attachment can make you ignore what you know. Attachment can make you defend what is damaging you. Attachment can make you explain away behavior that should concern you. Attachment can make you stay because leaving feels painful. Attachment can make you return because the silence feels too heavy. Attachment can make you choose familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. But wisdom speaks differently. Wisdom says, slow down, look at the pattern, pay attention to peace. Do not ignore what you keep seeing. Do not give your heart excuse me. Do not give your heart before character is proven. Do not confuse access with love. Do not confuse attention with commitment. Do not confuse potential with readiness. Do not confuse intensity with alignment. Do not call something God sent if it keeps pulling you away from God. Wisdom will not always tell you what your emotions want to hear, but wisdom will protect what your emotions may expose. This is why the pattern cannot break only by meeting a different person. The pattern breaks when you become different in how you choose. When your standard becomes stronger, when your healing becomes deeper, when your discernment becomes sharper, when your peace becomes non-negotiable, when your relationship with God becomes more important than emotional attachment, when your self-worth is no longer dependent on being chosen, when you stop asking only, do they want me? And start asking, are they healthy for me? Are they aligned with me? Do they have character? Do they bring peace? Can they handle my heart with maturity? Is this connection producing good fruit? That is where the cycle begins to break. Not when you simply meet someone new, but when you stop responding to the old pattern. When the same kind of person comes with the same kind of energy, but you no longer give them the same kind of access, that is growth. That is healing. That is wisdom. Because the goal is not just to attract someone different. The goal is to become wise enough to choose differently. And that begins with understanding the value of your heart. Your heart is not ordinary. Your heart is not disposable. Your heart is not something to be handed over because someone gave you attention. Your heart carries too much value to be placed in careless hands. So before you give your heart, ask, what pattern am I repeating? What wound is still influencing my choices? What familiar pain keeps attracting me? What am I calling love that may actually be attachment? What is God trying to show me that my emotions keep trying to explain away? Because sometimes the cycle does not break because the wrong people stop appearing. Sometimes the cycle breaks because you stop giving the wrong people access. That is wisdom. That is healing. That is growth. And that is the kind of love journey worth preparing for. So in closing, if you keep attracting the same kind of person, do not only look outward, look inward with honesty and grace. Not to blame yourself, but to understand yourself. Because healing begins when you stop ignoring the pattern. It begins when you stop calling familiar pain love. It begins when you stop mistaking attention for value. Healing begins when you stop letting loneliness choose for you. It begins when you stop building hope on potential instead of character. It begins when you stop treating cures like chemistries. Healing begins when you allow wisdom to become louder than attachment. This is the heart behind my book, Before You Give Your Heart. It is a message about love, wisdom, healing, discernment, emotional maturity, and protecting the heart before giving it away. Because before you give your heart, you should first understand its worth. If this message speaks to you, you can continue the journey through the book and at www.beforeyougiveyourheart.com. Before you give your heart, make sure the person receiving it understands its value. And first, make sure you do too. Thank you.